away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur. Dancing in the limelight, oh you're on in the night, looking fresh.
Positively Powerful on Wednesday, April 2nd with Scott Fitzgerald and Stacey Steinmiller. Good morning, Stacey. Today is my therapy session that we're going to do live on multiple platforms, if you don't mind. I wonder if it matters that I didn't change it. Anyway, so this is actually perfect. The perfect reason. This is why I asked you to do this show with me, was because adding all of the worldly external inputs that are happening to many people. It's just, I feel like life is just like, I'm sure there's some people out there that are like, life is awesome, I'm crushing it. And then there's some of us who are like, I don't freaking know what I'm doing. So, so that's why I wanted to do this. And today, I'm asking you to give us a topic, because I'm done. I'm spent. I'm all done. I'm all washed up.
I mean,
hyperbole, perhaps.
Right, yeah, I was gonna say. I wouldn't say washed up. And yeah, our best looks different every day, and that's okay. And it is coming into just like showing up. Like, I'm just gonna show up today. And I think it's also releasing what is all the stuff, the gunk that's going on in the mind that's like slowing the system down. Because usually when we have a hard time showing up, it's because we're thinking about other problems, right? Would you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's all kinds of gunk up in there. So it's and you know what? I've said this before. There are times where it's like, hey, if the best thing that you do today is get up, put on your shoes, and tie your shoes, then bravo, like applaud that. But there's some times where you have to do more than just show up. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to show up and you have to perform and you have to deliver. And there's sometimes it's really, really difficult to do that because you're just not in a good place, and for whatever reason. It could be, who knows, could be personal, could be professional, could be a combination of all of those things. You could just have a stomach ache, you could, who knows, all of those factors combined could make it more difficult for you to just show up and perform.
So then it's, how do I clear out the gunk? And practicing that, because it's really about letting go, which is really uncomfortable. So the reason why we hold on to the gunk up here is because we're trying to control it. We're trying to make things go the way that we want them to go. And so when you're doing that here while trying to perform at your job and your relationships with your children, whatever it is, then you're going to get all backed up, right? So it's, okay, how do I let go? And I won't even say, how do I let go? Am I willing? I think the question is, am I willing to let go of all that up here? Most people aren't.
Interesting. Am I willing to let go? I mean, I would love to get rid of all that gunk and just be like footloose and fancy free, as the kids are saying these days. Just because they are, they're saying that. Oh yeah. They're saying it.
I feel like
they're saying it.
He would know.
They're 90-year-old kids, but they're, kids at heart. But I constantly want to get rid of that stuff. And it's like, sometimes there's a lot of stuff. Sometimes there's just a little bit of one or two things that are bugging me, that are keeping me focused on those things, where I'm like, all right, just put them away. And I have had the ability to put a few things away, but when there's a lot of things, when there's a whole ton of things to put away, that's the challenge, is to put them all away. Now, do you categorize them first? Do you like put them in line and say which ones are more important than others? I mean, how do you do that? If there's like, for me, it's just a big mess of crap that I'm like, all right, it's like I've got to push. It's like when someone comes to your house and your house is a mess, so you just take all the crap and you throw it into the guest room and shut the door and like, look, I have a clean house. That's kind of like what it is in my head right now. So I've got to take all that stuff and shove it into the guest room, which I don't have. So
right, yeah. So it's more like setting it on fire, right, and fully releasing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, which I'm actually not joking. It's because putting it into the closet isn't going to help because it's still slowing the system down, right? Because it's running. It's like having too many tabs open, like how I was closing up everything I had running on my computer before we started this. It slows the system down. So putting it in the closet isn't a true release, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does it take to truly release it and say, I surrender this problem and focus just on what is in front of me right now? Right? Is that possible? Do you think?
It could be. It could be. Adam's with me here.
Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a reason. So I get that it feels impossible. So, but that is a belief then to unpack. Being like, I can't handle it. Oh, so this is good because I was talking about the I can't yesterday. And I know I'm sure you've heard this, like when you're a kid, you know how they're like, don't say you can't, believe you can,
right?
And all that. And yeah. So that's a thing. I resisted that a lot as a kid. I was like, that's lame, right? But it's true, and you need to not use the words I can't, right?
Nobody ever remembers this. It was like an after school special that we always watched when I was in grade school. This is down in Florida, so maybe, I don't know. It was called like The Amazing Power of Duffy Moon or something like that. I have to remember it was a long, ridiculous long title. And it was about this kid, and like his whole life would change if he would just say, you can do it, Duffy Moon, you can do it. And he would like repeat that to himself, or other kids would repeat that. And it showed him like lifting all these rocks and like doing all these like superhuman things because he was able to like repeat that he could do it. Ridiculous. But that's what they showed us when we were kids. And the message was that it was, take that negativity out of your head, convince yourself you can do things, and stop being your own block to moving forward.
Yeah. It's a big thing. And so by recognizing when you're in overwhelm, you'll say things like, I can't handle this. I just can't do this right now. This isn't fair. Why do I always have to do this? Right. So there's all these statements that resemble, being in a victim mindset, which we might call, that are in the way from actually releasing whatever you need to release and be in the moment right now. So it's really coming back to, what does this moment right now require of me? Because right now it's really simple. Like right in this moment, I am required to be here and talking to you. And that's actually all it is. Anything else going on right now isn't needed,
I see. So it's more of a being in this moment right now, focus on the job at hand and literally putting everything else on hold, pushing it away for now, no matter how difficult it is. That's a challenge for a lot of people. I know that when it comes down to it, if If I'm under the gun and there's something that I have to get done, and it's important, I do that. It's sort of like, I don't know. I think it goes hand in hand with my work ethic. You know, it's kind of like the job must get done. You have to do this. If I have a big project that's due tomorrow and I'm not done with it, I will be here all night until it's done. And then when it's done, I'll go and collapse for 24 hours. But if I can, most of the time I can't do that anymore. But anyway, that's what happens. And a lot of times I think because of my past, I've found that I end up working better under those situations. I end up working better being completely under the gun and stressed and in a almost impossible situation. And that's just because my first professional job, that was the situation I was in for a long time. I was forced to be in that situation. So it was always, here's a project with an unrealistic deadline and no tools, and you don't know how to use the software. Do it. Mm. And I'm not exaggerating. That was literally how I started my career. And it was like day after day. All right, you want to get this project done? You need to learn the software and do it and make it happen. I don't care if you don't know how to do it. Do it. And so that kind of stress, I kind of learned to thrive in that environment, which is not a healthy environment to be in. So I've been trying to get myself out of that. And, you know, so that's a really good piece of advice to say, all right, what do I have to do right at this moment? Right at this moment. Be on this live stream with Stacey. All right, let's do that. And all the other crap has to go away. It has to. You don't, it might not be easy, but you have to, because there's so much. There's just so much right now. Like, I almost didn't want to do this today because I was like, oh, so much going on. And, you know, if it was all good things going on, I'd be like, let's do it, you know, but it's always the hardship stuff that it's like, I don't see the answer to all these different problems. It's just the more question marks that are in my mind at one particular time makes the job at hand so much harder to deal with. I assume that's the way it is for most people. If things aren't going right in your life, then what you're doing right now is harder to get done because you're thinking of all the things that aren't going right.
Right, which means you're not in the present moment, right? And you're trying to control and solve it instead. And I even call that, it's like an addiction. We are addicted to these thoughts, to solving problems, instead of learning to trust ourselves, learning to just know that I am capable. Right? So now it goes back to that belief, right? So if I have a deep belief that I can't, or I'm not capable, then I'm going to want to figure out all these question marks going on. And there's going to be anxiety and stress and fear around figuring out the question marks, right? But if I have a deep belief that I am capable, and then I know, well, I don't need to solve all the question marks right now because I'm doing something else right now. But since I know I'm capable, I know the question marks will get solved when they need to get solved, and however that happens, right? So that's why the belief is so important. So important.
Yeah, that belief that you're capable, that's I think that's a big roadblock for a lot of people. I know it is often for me, where my questioning that fact of that belief that I'm capable is I think the cause of a lot of those problems. Like, because I'm questioning, am I, I've got this thing going on I'm nervous about that can I do it? Am I really going to be able to do it? I've always been able to pull those things off that I say that, are coming up that I'm nervous about. But somehow deep down, there's that, call it imposter syndrome if you want, but it's that doubt, that self-doubt, can I really pull this off? Who am I? I'm just some dude who could, has to deal with this. I don't know. Yeah. So what would be a way for someone like me who deals with that self-doubt on a daily basis? what are some ways that we can try to beat that self-doubt? Obviously, without going to therapy and things that you should probably do when you have that kind of self-doubt. You know, so that's my first step, was to go to therapy, so therapy helped me to overcome a lot of the self-doubt that I had before. Like there was a lot. It was like everything. And now there's just a couple of things that I have to, like you say, I have to like sit down and go, all right, wait, hold on a second. Let's think about this. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you've done it before. You can do it again. Stop talking to yourself that way or whatever. So is it that easy where someone can just sit down for 5 minutes and talk to themselves and tell them that they're going to do it?
Probably not. Well, it's more in the action. Like once you actually start to do the thing and do it, that's where the beliefs start to change. So it's often making that first step. So that's why oftentimes I crawl back a lot with people. It's like, okay, what's the goal? What's going on? Let's crawl back to that very first action step and making that feel doable and feel like you're capable so that you get going on the path. We're most stuck when we don't even do any action, right? Then when we're in collapse, that's we're not going to get anywhere. So we need to get the action to align with our belief of what we do actually believe we're capable of, right? So once we get that alignment, then we can make that first step, and then now we're going to build momentum from there.
Yeah.
Which today for you is being here right now, having this conversation, right? It's like, okay, that's that first step in building that momentum, right? And then knowing by doing this, after this, I'll feel better, right? And going from there. But once you actually fully work on the beliefs, you don't have to convince yourself. You shouldn't feel like you're convincing yourself. And so that also means you're just too much in the mind. And this is where we want to bring like your heart space. This is where it gets, people are like, it turns people off more of, okay, get centered into your heart, do some deep breaths, come in here, honor yourself as a human being, having a human experience, validate whatever's going on, that may be bringing up feelings of, grief or sadness or loss or fear, right? So we need to feel capable to meet our emotions so that we can kind of get into that heart-centered space, which then takes us out of our mind and the worry, and then we kind of grow in feelings of love and gratitude and all that wonderful stuff that we enjoy.
Yeah, I could see how that would turn some people off, but they really need to open themselves up to that. I was struggling yesterday with a couple of different problems, and I was just like, I'm going to go in and meditate on it. And I did. I meditated on it, and I got some ideas. It remains to be seen if they're ideas that are going to fix the problem. It looks like they might. But either way, for the moment, I was able to get rid of that block that I was having about the problem. Adam says he also has the ADHD urge to push everything off until the deadline is approaching, which that was the problem that I had too, was because I had gotten so used to working in that environment that I almost made it an excuse to procrastinate. It was like, all right, well, I can push that off because what's going to happen is I'm going to have, 48 hours to get it done, and I'm going to crush it. Which is, once again, it's a terrible way to work. But because I got so used to that, it just became part of like what I did.
Yeah. I have previously identified as a master procrastinator. Really good at it as well, like you guys. The interesting thing is that I've done the work. I still do things last minute. I just don't stress about it anymore. So I don't know if there's still more steps to take there in my own evolution, but I've noticed, yeah, it hasn't necessarily changed when I get things done. I'm just not freaking out anymore, which I'll take that. That's pretty cool. Like I have something I need to do by the 4th, I know. I don't even know exactly what I gotta do, but I'm like, well, today's the 2nd. Um, I'll do it. I'll probably maybe open the email this afternoon to like find out right what I need to do, and I'll find time to do it. So but there's that trust. Like I have this, that's what has shifted for me, is I have this deep trust that I'll do it and I'll figure it out, and I know I'm not going to freak out about it because I'm at that point where I'm not letting myself get into those really activated states anymore, because I was like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be running around like a chicken with my head cut off, stressing myself out, stressing everybody else out around me. And I think that was the thing that really did it for me when I finally realized how much of an asshole I am when I'm in that state, right? And I was like, that's not fair. That's not fair for me. That's not fair for them. And I need to do something about this. And I think that was probably a big turning point for me when I could really see from that bird's eye view. And then that funniness. Okay, so this we talked about the mushrooms and things before because that really helped me to see all this. So when I was able to kind of really look at my behavior, freaking out about the dumbest shit in the world, right? And then so if you can see yourself like as this little human running around, freaking out, you're like, oh my goodness, like how silly is that? And so when you start to see those things as like silly behavior, being attached to something that's just simply not true or not there, then you can kind of laugh it off. So that was like a big part of my perception shift around
Interesting.
that as well.
You talk about getting things done. Megan, you met Megan last night at the networking, right? She's a comedian.
Yes, hi Megan.
Megan,
yes, awesome.
Oh my God! Can we just talk about?
Funny.
Can we just talk about how when I met Megan, she was an intern on Bottom Feeders when we made Bottom Feeders, and if you met Megan then and then you met Megan now, you would swear they were two completely different people. This girl has totally completely turned her entire life around. She got into comedy. She wanted to be a comedian, so she started getting into that. She started just doing it. She didn't, she was afraid, but she's like, screw it, I'm going to do it. She started her own company, Rose Cleaning. I mean, she is just crushing it. So when it comes down to sometimes when I'm feeling kind of like I've been feeling, a lot of times I'll just see people like Megan or see people like you and see other people that are on in my friends group on Facebook and say, they're all crushing it, and they're not, they make everybody on social media, it looks easy, or else like, hey, look at I'm doing, like, I'm awesome. But that it's just like that whole duck on a pond thing, right? The pond is calm, but underneath the water, the legs are going like this. And, so seeing other people, and then actually reaching out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you're doing all this great stuff. What have you done when it gets hard for you? Like, what happens when you maybe they're going to be able to relate, or you're going to be able to relate to something that they say, like, oh yeah, I had this big tragedy happen last year, but what I did was, and maybe that will resonate. Maybe you can learn from them and that kind of thing. That's what I often forget with all the people that I've met through this company and through all the, amazing stories that we record here. I often forget that there's a whole bunch of people that I could reach out to and be like, hey man, how you doing? And how did you do this? How did you get through that? Tell me how you got through it. Because I gotta learn.
You even have a group that you can pop into whenever you want.
Oh yes, I know. There's that group.
But yeah, and a lot of times people, they hire support. They work with a therapist. They hire a coach like me, and that's okay. Like that's when you really see a lot of those quantum leaps that people make. And I've always had the belief that has been helpful for me. I don't know if you've had this, Scott, when I do see other people. Well, I guess this has evolved over time, so I have to correct myself. I did used to see people so far beyond me that I just thought they had some gene that I didn't have, right? So it's like, well, they're that successful because they are clearly just a different human and don't have my characteristics, and I am limited by my DNA.
Yeah.
And I can't be them, right? Like,
yeah,
so
I totally feel that.
belief.
That's interesting because I think about that a lot. I think about that. I'm like, well, I'm just not that kind of person. That's not what I do.
You can be what you want to be. And then that comes back down to the belief system is again of, well, what person do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What beliefs do I want to have? And you do get to create that. So once I stopped putting people on a pedestal like that, and again, it goes back to the I can't. Like, I know this sounds like so elementary, but right, that's what I was saying to myself. Well, I can't, and I would come up with all these, high level excuses, right? Just because they're intelligent excuses, they're still excuses, right? And then being able to see, what, they're human, they've evolved. And if they made those changes, then I can make those changes too, right? You look at all the successful people, look at where you're similar to them, not where you're different, and recognize they're just a human, just like you are. And you can learn how to do that for yourself as well.
Yeah. So I did find, I'm going to try to do this without like live, which is probably a mistake, but the thing that I found, the amazing cosmic awareness of Duffy Moon. This was what they this is what they showed us in school. This is from February 4th, 1976 is when it aired. And
10 years before, that was 10 years almost to the day before I was born.
Before you were born?
Yeah, I was born in 86.
Oh, Jesus. Whatever.
I like to tell everybody.
So it aired in 76, but I watched it in the, in the mid 80s. This was 84, 85, whatever.
Yeah.
But I knew that I would find it. It was such a ridiculous, like if I want to go back and watch it now because it was so ridiculous. I'm dating myself. Yes. All right. Adam says I'm dating myself. Yes, I was born in 1973. I'm 52 years old. What else? I remember my first computer. I remember my first time on AOL, and I had a really long telephone cable going into the bedroom for my apartment, and we had to dial up, and it used to take like 15 minutes before we get online. And I remember asking someone, how do you do a web search? Like, what is that? Yeah.
I used to go to the Nickelodeon website because I was 11 when I got the internet. I didn't know what to do on the internet. Like, what do I do? And all I knew was to go to the Nickelodeon website. And even then, I didn't even really know what to do with it. It was just like, I would like read it and sit there like a weirdo.
I was 21, I think, when I 21 or 22 when I first got the internet. I bought this old piece of crap computer from somebody, and yeah, I just remember it was my first time on AOL asking a bunch of strangers. They're like, I asked someone a question and they were like, just do a web search. And I'm like, how do you do a web search? And they like sent me to some like web crawler or something. This was before Google, and probably just a little bit before Yahoo, or maybe Yahoo's around. I don't know. But I just remember I was so like amazed. But the first couple of people that I talked to online were trolls. So they were around. They were around at the very start, like the birth of the internet and the birth of the troll were on the same day. God created the internet and he created the troll.
Well, I guess that's right, because I used to go in chat rooms all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's what it was.
And they're lying. Yeah, but you knew everybody was lying, though.
It was right.
Like, it was like obvious, like everybody in here is like not saying the correct age or any, you know what I mean? It was like this whole shit show. I mean, I was 11. I was on a shared screen name with we had a family screen name, right? Like where we all my brother and I would sit together at the computer doing it together. It was just like a whole fun thing.
Oh man. I just think about all the time I wasted on the computer back in those days. I could have made lots of money if I'd have known about it. But anyway. Hindsight is 20. Hindsight is 2020. Yeah. Think of all the scams I could have created back then.
You would have been master troll.
Yes. Well, anyway, as we wrap up today, we started on I can't do anything right to I found the first trolls on the internet. I discovered trolls. What's the takeaway today, Stacey? What can we take away from our conversation?
Yeah, I think the takeaway is to be mindful of the gunk in your head and recognize that you do have power to release that, right? And really understand what the negative thoughts underneath your behaviors are. Like, yeah, is there a deep belief of the I can't, or is there a deep belief of the I'm capable? And we really want to move that to 100% capable. It's when you really, you'll notice improvements along that percentage change. But when there's still this doubt creeping in, that's when you'll notice some of those old patterns pop up, right? So, yeah, I don't know if that was a good summary, but
yeah. And I found the sound effect for the gunk. That's the gunk that's in my mind right now. Because at heart, I'm a 1980s morning DJ. That's where it is.
Take a deep breath and remember who you
We'll see you next time. Hopefully.
Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby. You're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels like time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. Got some fun.